Okay, here goes. So, as I'm sure everyone can tell by the title of the video, I want to talk about the whole Susan Yara Naturium situation. Of course, there's a lot of commentaries and videos on the subject already, and originally I really didn't want to put so much effort into making my own and putting it out there. But then, as the situation kind of evolved and there was a lot of stuff that weren't being covered in the other videos, I ultimately thought that I could potentially provide some valuable insight and analysis into the whole situation, both as someone who's been observing everything go down since before even the beginning, and as someone who has a background in this sort of stuff. So I have a business administrations background or degree, sorry, in marketing with minors in advertising, PR, and communications. And so back in university, I also studied business law, business ethics, and psychology, and so on. So my purpose for making this video is not to bash, hate on, baselessly criticize, or even dogpile on Susan Yara. There's just so much to unpack, and so I just want to provide an in-depth breakdown of the situation from all of the relevant angles that I thought of. And so in advance, I want to apologize if this video kind of looks like a tea video at some parts. I just included enough screen grabs to kind of get a gist of the situation, and I do try to let them speak for themselves. And so I really tried to present things from a neutral perspective because my goal is to help people understand what's going on and also maybe potentially facilitate some discourse on business ethics and influencer culture if possible. Okay, wait, a little disclaimer before we start. When I say insider, I consider myself an insider as an industry insider and also as an observer since before the very beginning. I just want to make it clear that I am not affiliated with and cannot speak on behalf of any of the parties that are mentioned. And while I do my best to present on the factual basis that my commentary is based off of, everything I say should not be taken as a definitive truth. Okay, let's get started. Although I'm sure everyone tuning into this would already know the basics by now, but just to cover my bases. So Susan Yara, a skincare influencer, initially told her following that the brand Naturium was sent to her via a PR mailer that was essentially a part of a list of brand reviews that she was working on, and later on does say that she's going to be developing a partnership with them. And she basically compares it to The Ordinary and starts recommending it in her Facebook group and also YouTube videos. But it's ultimately revealed that she is actually a co-founder of the brand after people began speculating about it. So this raises questions of transparency and business ethics from consumers who were led to believe that she was simply promoting a brand she liked and was unaffiliated with. So as you can see, these were the comments that were left under her Facebook post. One of the comments was someone asking for a discount code, which honestly, same. But she does oblige and eventually provides one. And so all of this kind of just correlates around a time where there were a lot of hype and mentions around Naturium in general, and that kind of included a lot of moderators. And so I only included this kind of as an example, as where even if this moderator's thoughts and opinions and review of Naturium may not have been sponsored, and he may not have been aware of Susan's founder status with the brand at the time, but him including Susan's discount code kind of just contributes to the false impression that her discount code would have been unaffiliated. So another thing I kind of wanted to cover real quick is that there have been people that also bring up how a certain member or staff member of the mixed makeup YouTube team of Susan's has also posted about Naturium within the Facebook page. And I just wanted to kind of point out real quick that seeing as the staff member isn't necessarily a public figure, the obligation to disclose isn't necessarily the same as, let's say, like an influencer. And so the point of contention here isn't to kind of imply that the moderators or influencers connected to Susan or the brand would know anything beforehand, but it's just kind of to help provide context to, again, all of the stuff that's been going on and talked about. She also mentions and recommends the brand a few times within a few YouTube channels where there are affiliate link disclaimers, but the Naturium isn't a part of those links, so it's been since updated to say that she's co-founder. She also eventually talks about in the Facebook group that she's going to work on a partnership with them soon, so there will be more stuff in the future to come. So I kind of want to get into the buildup of the events that kind of sets the scene. So this particular incident also happens to occur soon after many fans and supporters had been critical of Susan's way of handling the Facebook group's clashing stances on Black Lives Matter. At the beginning of June, while Susan herself had demonstrated clear support for the BLM movement, and most of the group seemed generally supportive as well, inevitable disagreements are, of course, going to come up within the comment section. So this caused her and her admin team to disable comments on certain threads, and eventually she closed the group down for a week. So the admin team was pretty much criticized for shutting down discourse and prioritizing the protection of racially insensitive members against a negative backlash rather than addressing the problematic things they were saying, which some people consider to be performative allyship and false positivity. So when the group was reopened, Susan made a statement reaffirming her support, history, and commitment for activism, while new moderators were added and new rules were implemented. So as a businesswoman, Susan likely did this for the sake of practical progress, protecting her brand, and keeping the peace. It's just that by doing so, it prompted certain inevitable backlash, and some members felt so strongly and passionately that a new Facebook group was formed around the sentiment of intersectional beauty, POC support, and open discussion, which amassed hundreds of members within the week that the mixed makeup group was down. So I want to make clear that noting so is not meant to sway or affect the issues of business ethics or transparency at hand, but rather to provide context for the recent events and perspectives that follow. So within this new Facebook group, people began to openly post about the origins of this Naturium brand that had been recommended by Susan since April. And people began speculating that one of the undisclosed founders may be Susan Yara herself as they began to dig into things. And so after all of this, people started to post in her group and messaging the brand's accounts or potential affiliates asking for answers, and they were just gathering information and trying to piece together the pieces. And so the original post of all of this was on June 11th. About a week later, Susan does take to social media to confirm the news that she is the founder on June 21st. And so, as you can see, this is someone asking Susan to release a statement regarding BLM issues, saying that people were upset, angry, and thinking about leaving. And I presented what Susan posted originally about Black Lives Matter and also what she kind of came back after a week and reaffirmed. She basically ends the statement by saying, "I built this brand, group, and presence from scratch, and it pained me to see it become a place where our members, team, and I felt unwelcome. I will not allow that to happen again. My next post in here will be about our rules and what you can expect from this group going forward. I remain committed to transparency, accountability, and impacting change, and I look forward to watching our group grow in a positive direction." Then, as you can see here, within the new group that was formed, someone posted on June 11th asking, "Can someone help me find the founders of Naturium? It is nowhere online and something is fishy." And that is basically where people began to band together and become, what the internet community is best known for, basically private investigators. They began to start piecing together all of the pieces. Namely, one of the major hints that someone brought up was that, according to the Pull Up or Shut Up challenge posted by Naturium, they disclosed that one of their founders is Asian Hispanic, and someone, mentioned that this would fit Susan's ethnicity identification exactly. And so they began to message the brand, and of course the brand explained that they were just going through a lot of things and they were trying to work things out, and they are planning to introduce themselves soon. And people just basically directly started to ask if Susan would be associated with Naturium, and they began to also post in her Facebook group. And of course, a lot of stuff came up, and the original poster had to kind of edit her post into this huge chunk of disclaimers. But she basically left with the comment that, she's thankful for the community that Susan has built for us, and she's just asking her to facilitate some questions about the brand because she's been able to procure discount codes before in the past. So shortly after all of this, on June 21st, Susan does eventually announce that she is the founder of Naturium. Within her announcement, she does apologize um, firsthand to anyone that would be upset by the route she took. She kind of stated that, the timing didn't feel right. There was a lot of stuff going on, and she kind of just wanted to establish Naturium as a serious skincare line without her influence first. And she also further kind of clarifies that all of the moderators and content creators that have talked about the brand have only found out about it within the last few days. Now let's move on to the whole reaction and response to this brand reveal. Of course, a lot of people were happy and excited about this news, but then there were also a lot of people that were outraged and upset. So, of course, they all took to social media to kind of post either their support or criticism. There were comments that were completely positive. There were comments that were very, very critical. And so there were also comments, of course, kind of like this in the middle where people were saying that they were kind of disappointed because she lied, but they loved her videos and support her. And so they feel deceived, but generally still supportive. And so Susan responds to that with saying that she's sorry, her intent was never to deceive, and that she thanks them for the continued support, and that she appreciates the feedback. So within the mixed makeup Facebook group, one of the people who originally even started bringing attention and looking into the whole Naturium founder situation made this comment. She said, "I hope you will reflect on your actions and own your faults of not disclosing your material connection to the brand. You went out of your way to intentionally lie and deceive your following. Your actions speak louder than any words to explain or justify the circumstances. If you went out of your way to hide this, what else are you hiding? How long were you going to lie for before being found out? To those who will try to change the subject and defend the actions, I challenge you to stop believing what influencers say at face value, question the narrative, and speak up. Susan was intentional in her actions and potentially violated the law." She provides some links below. Queen of Transparency, doubting your disclosures 14 weeks ago was right of me, and I'm glad I spoke up and asked. No wonder you were so defensive. Should I still trust you now? Your lack of integrity has tarnished your reputation. While I believe people can change, this is goodbye for now. And so she kind of keeps providing sources basically to explain her dissent, including she brought up how the group's stance on basically the fake Sunday Riley reviews on Sephora were condemned compared to this situation. And to all of this, Susan replies, "You know what I saw through all of this? I saw a woman going after another woman under the guise of being mindful shoppers. It made me sad for you, and I wish you well." So to this, someone replied, "Wait, what part of FTC violation / illegal is women going after women?" And Susan says, did you tell everyone how you harassed all the people the Naturium account follows, or how you posted in a different group all the hate you have for me while posing as a mindful consumer here? That's going after another woman. So, as with any fan-based group like the Mixed Makeup Facebook group, of course there's going to be both overwhelming support and stern criticism that's left under the announcements post that she made. So, in response to one of the more critical posts, you can see here that there's fans that kind of say, don't bash her and then still follow and comment on this group because your point makes no sense. There's people saying there's so many other problems in this world right now. There's other things to dispute about. This is not the group for that, etc. And so, one of the moderators' response to this is in the yellow. He said, the reasoning is already in the announcement and in the video. It's called a soft launch. You are allowed to disagree, but there is no point in continuing such discussion. And then the other moderator in the black says, as a fellow consumer, I understand your concerns. However, I can vouch for her best intentions and know the difficult decisions she had to make. She was trying to say that Susan wasn't trying to dupe anyone and just wanted honest, unbiased feedback so she could perfect the product. She says that it was never Susan's intent to hurt or deceive anyone, but that if they're not comfortable with the brand, she hopes that they can find another that better aligns with their preferences. So here's a comment that says, actively promoting a brand is not letting it speak for itself, especially when you have a financial interest in selling the product. Regardless of how happy people are that you're the founder, it is still deceitful and ultimately, as others have pointed out, possibly illegal per FTC regulations. I'm sure the growth would have been a little slower without the help of your promotion on social media, etc., but that would have been the best way to let the brand shine in its own right. In addition, consumers have the right to know who they are purchasing from, especially in times like this where consumers are more conscious than ever of their buying power, and when you know that information and knowingly withhold it or deflect when asked is not right. As happy as I am that you are the founder of this amazing line, the whole situation is very disappointing. A fan responds kind of saying that, honestly, you're more disappointing, stop trying to play lawyer, it is embarrassing, get over your jealousy, stuff like that. But you can see that they also said you think they didn't consult actual professionals before this launch. So a moderator responds to all this saying, offering one post and one discount code in response to being tagged is not active promotion. Anonymously sending products to influencers who happen to love it, thus promote it themselves without knowing who it is behind it, also not her actively promoting it. Please stop bringing negativity through inaccuracies. So another group member actually directly asks, did you consult a legal team before pulling this stunt? I'm disappointed by the lack of transparency. If you wanted to keep it to yourself and see if it grew through word of mouth, that's fine, but you posted endorsing products without disclosing you have a monetary interest in the sales. That's not okay and potentially illegal. I'm disappointed. And so, of course, there's a lot more other comments, but I basically captured the moderator response who confirms, sorry to hear of your disappointment. This has involved legal counsel on many levels and no violations have been committed. To which the original commenter responds, if the FTC charged a couple of influencers in 2017 with not disclosing they owned a gambling site they were endorsing, how is this any different? And so they bring up the CSGO lotto situation. And she further states, because she's not okay with what's going on, she's going to quit the group and file FTC complaint, etc. Amongst all of this, of course, Susan maintains an apologetic stance by saying, I apologize, but she further says, but the fact that people post comments here, then screenshot them and post them in another group just makes me feel like they're instigators. And someone responds to that saying, because you keep deleting comments, this is you avoiding accountability. And a moderator does eventually kind of address the whole deleting comments thing. She kind of says that she just wanted to offer some insight. The moderator team aren't starting to senselessly ban people. However, if someone is disrupting various threads through non-constructive comments, reaching out to moderators personally, and tracking us down on various platforms, all while trashing us in other groups, yes, those few are blocked. Those decisions don't come lightly, nor without deliberation. She asks that they please don't assume the worst about us or our intentions, or that we have a compromised moral compass. We're allowing conversations to be had, all while saying inaccurate assumptions. However, we have to address spamming and member attacking the language. They're saying that those are the few comments that have been deleted, and so on. However, one of the more consistent contributors to the group that spoke up throughout all of this kind of made this comment within the other new group that's unassociated with mixed makeup. She says that she has been banned. Her comment was very calm and collected, and she was just very disappointed and felt stupid for defending her for so long. So this is kind of the comment that she says she was deleted for. You can read more in depth if you want, but basically she says, Susan, I am a fan and you know it. I love this group and was very active on it. I was extremely disappointed when you told me you were working on your skincare line. I was extremely happy because you deserved one. I was sad when you told me the pandemic stopped it. Me and the people in your group trust your opinion and buy blindly what you advertise or recommend. People bought Naturium because they trust your opinion. Sometimes there's a difference when you advertise your own brand because you're literally biased. It's your baby. And she just kind of goes on and explains how she felt massively disappointed and upset by this. And another person kind of stated they blocked and kicked me out of the group for posting the PR mailer screenshot. And another person within the mixed makeup group says that there hasn't been a single post approved regarding the unethical promotion about Naturium. And to which the moderator replies that there's a lot of people working, they just have a lot of stuff going on, and so it's difficult to approve and maintain the group. She kind of just goes on to say that she gets it, you think it was unethical, illegal, deceitful, etc. We've seen every single one of your comments, and I promise we get it and understand. But then she kind of goes on and say, oh yeah, and the two of us you're insulting right now do this for free. So aside from all of that, there are just two more instances involving moderators kind of that I just wanted to mention. Someone on Instagram commented, not disclosing this to us before and recommending Naturium to us on Facebook and YouTube is against the law. And this one particular contributor to Mixed Makeup, and also she is a part of the Facebook group as a moderator, she comments here saying, as a lawyer, isn't it unethical to be accusing them of this? This goes against the code of ethics in many states. The commenter replied, no, it doesn't. As a private citizen, I'm allowed to accuse anyone of it, whatever I want, and when someone broke the law, I'm allowed to mention that too. To which the Mixed Makeup contributor responds, I would consider reviewing the rules around professional conduct in Illinois. And so the commenter responds to that saying, are you threatening me? And she says, no, just making a suggestion. And the commenter says, because that's a great look as a contributor to Mixed Makeup. And she also responds, well, in that case, I'd kindly suggest that you review the FTC guidelines on disclosure. And so other people start noticing and piping up saying, this is the type of employees you have, people who stalk and threaten customers for voicing their opinions. And so the original commenter responds to all of this, finally saying, I've been blocked by said employee, but before that I was trying to point out that yes, my profession has rules of professional conduct. However, Susan Mixed Makeup is not in any way related to my client's legal practice, meaning I am free to comment as I like. Therefore, as someone who lost she got money because I purchased Naturium products under false pretenses, i.e. that Susan found out about the brand from a PR mailer and loved them, I am free to research the law and find out that she did in fact break it. My profession simply aids me in that I have experience interpreting law. And so other commenters can say, exactly, I also purchased products and definitely purchased the products under false pretenses. And another person says, so unprofessional, don't understand why a Mixed Makeup employee would feel the need to bicker in the comments section of her boss's other businesses. And so this is just a screenshot saying that she's a part of Mixed Makeup. So lastly, within this whole moderator, involved situation, one of the whistleblowers, or one of the people who were really just actively looking into the Naturium founder situation and bringing attention to it before the whole thing was even revealed, she eventually got a notification on LinkedIn that a moderator was looking at her profile. Now, I do not know what would have led to this happening. I'm just providing a screenshot to show that it happened. So let's start to break things down a little and start with business strategy, taking a look at what happened here and maybe what went wrong. We all know about a hard launch or like a grand opening of sorts where a company releases a completed product for sale to the general public, usually with more than adequate marketing campaign and ample promotion, advertising, buzz. People know about it, they're anticipating it, stuff like that. So with a soft launch, however, a company will release a product to either a controlled group of targeted consumers or to a general public with little to no promotion, usually a beta version of sorts, where a company will take the feedback that they get from it and implement it within the final version that is released. So as a skincare brand, Naturium more than likely would have conducted adequate testing before launch. Before the product goes to market, it has to meet several standards and also pass several field testing trials, stuff like that, before the product even gets to market. I'm sure they've done more than enough fair share of testing. And so after that, a soft launch is often a good choice for smaller businesses like indie brands as a way to fine-tune things, right? As a way to gather more feedback about what consumers actually like about the final product and make some final changes and adjustments, etc. So being that timing of COVID and also current events like social justice movements and stuff like that were probably contributing factors that made things a lot harder for Susan, deciding to soft launch without her name attached is a very fair and valid business decision. So that is not the issue that is necessarily being debated. Rather, the issue lies in the contradictory execution, how Susan endorsed the brand while misrepresenting herself in the process. As Susan kind of explains it herself, her whole purpose of doing this anonymous soft launch was kind of to get a gist of how people felt about the brand without her name attached, right, to get unbiased feedback. But the thing is, when you kind of endorse a product as an influencer, that inherently invokes some sort of bias within the feedback and reception that you're going to get. So basically, if you want to hide your affiliation to the brand, then don't promote it. And if you want to promote it, then don't hide your affiliation to the brand. An alternative that I kind of thought of, or another way that maybe Naturium could have gone with this instead, is to do some sort of giveaway, right? There's hardly any cause for concern in regards to deceptive marketing when you just give away the product for free. And so it would be similar to how they kind of did this launch in the way that influencers were able to try the product via PR for anonymous or unaffiliated review, and it just turned out to be a surprise that it was Susan's brand. So it would have been nice to kind of see Susan do a little sort of PR for the people moment. It would have kind of put a very heartfelt spin to the launch, maybe as Susan kind of gives back to her fans and supporters, something like that. Or even if Susan just kind of wanted to offer some sort of exclusive discount code within her Facebook group of close followers, she could have just simply put a small disclaimer saying that she had a relationship with the brand. I don't think she needed to go in depth to clarify what that was if she didn't know what she was allowed to say yet. Because the thing is, there are studies that show that having a disclaimer or like an affiliate disclaimer doesn't actually cause any harm in regards to perception of the influencer from their subscribers, right? It actually often causes or invokes a positive impression because of the transparency and honesty. So let's now get into the question that's on everyone's mind, right? And evaluate a little bit about the question of legality versus ethics. So was it illegal? Was what Susan Yara did against the law? Now, before we start, I want to clarify again that I do not have a legal background. Everything that I say is based on my own understanding and what I've studied about law, business law, and ethics in the past. So, according to the FTC endorsement guide, it lists the following scenario as an example. Suppose you meet someone who tells you about a great new product. She tells you it performs wonderfully and offers fantastic new features that nobody else has. Would that recommendation factor into your decision to buy the product? Probably. Now, suppose a person works for a company that sells a product or has been paid by the company to tout the product. Would you want to know that when you are evaluating the endorser's glowing recommendation? You bet. That common sense premise is at the heart of the Federal Trade Commission's FTC endorsement guides. It then goes on to further say the guides at their core reflect the basic truth in telling advertising principle that endorsements must be honest and not misleading. An endorsement must reflect the honest opinion of the endorser and can't be used to make a claim that the product's marketer couldn't legally make. In addition, the guides say if there's a connection between the endorser and the marketer that consumers would not expect and it would affect how consumers evaluate the endorsement, that connection must be disclosed. For example, if an ad features an endorser who's a relative or employee of the marketer, the ad is misleading unless the connection is made clear. The same is usually true if the endorsement has been paid or given something of value to tout the product. The reason is obvious. Knowing about the connection is important information for anyone evaluating the endorsement. It then also states, the endorsement guides also state that if there is a connection between the endorser and the marketer of a product that would affect how people evaluate the endorsement, it should be disclosed. The guides are not regulations, and so there are no civil penalties associated with them, but if advertisers don't follow the guides, the FTC may decide to investigate whether their practices are unfair or deceptive under the FTC Act. Then, of course, due to the onslaught of the social media age, the FTC guidelines have since been updated to include these clarifications on when to disclose, specifically in regards to influencers and such. So I'm pretty much going to just let the FTC guidelines speak for themselves, but I do want to note that guidelines are not the same thing as laws or regulations, so violating guidelines does not automatically mean breaking the law. As we've kind of read previously, it basically is a basis to bring potential violators under investigation to determine whether the FTC should try them under the FTC Act. But typically the FTC really just prosecutes harmful frauds on a larger scale. And so usually they also prioritize the actual advertiser or brand over the influencer or endorser. But in this case, Susan is both. And a lot of times people compare the situation with the CSGO lotto situation where two influencers were tried under the FTC Act for basically promoting a gambling company that they had stakes and ownership in without disclosing it. And so the ultimate settlement that came out of that case was that they were charged and found to be in violation, and they weren't fined though. And so it was determined that if they ever did violate the law again, that they would be charged $40,000 per infraction, and that's what came out of that case. So let's get into the other thing that people kind of took issue with was how Susan basically, I guess, endorsed the brand by comparing it to The Ordinary. She stated, "A fan of The Ordinary, I have found a better brand called Naturium, ... The formulas are superior." She then also compares several products as basically dupes for other brand products. So within comparative advertising, there are superiority claims where you're claiming your product is better than another brand, or a parity claim where you're claiming your product is just as good. And sometimes it can be a mix of both. You can say your product is just as good and maybe cheaper or something like that, which is evident that Susan was kind of using comparative advertising within the endorsement that she made. But the issue of legality here would be whether or not they were false claims. So the FTC would pursue both direct and implied claims, but generally only pursues violations of truth on objective claims and not subjective ones. And the reasoning for that is that usually subjective ones are opinions, right? And they also fall under the defense of puffery, or a promotional statement or exaggerated claim that expresses subjective rather than objective views, which no reasonable person would take literally. And so let's say, for example, a diner claims that they have the world's best cup of coffee. No reasonable consumer would be expected to take in consideration of this claim at its face value, right? They wouldn't really actually believe that because it's kind of the opinion of the diner. Of course, any company or brand can claim and have the opinion that their product is better. And so and generally, the FTC will consider both the consideration of face value and context. And so the FTC basically states they do not pursue subjective claims or puffery, claims like this is the best hairspray in the world. But if there is an objective component to the claim, such as more consumers prefer our hairspray to any other, or our hairspray lasts longer than most popular brands, then you need to be sure that the claim is not deceptive and that you have adequate substantiation before you make the claim. So the ethical issue here is that by even utilizing comparative advertising and now seeing that she is a co-founder in hindsight, consumers now can't really distinguish whether that claim is supposed to be Susan's genuine opinion as an influencer or just as a brand itself. But the legal issue here would be whether she made a false advertising claim or not. If you consider her to be making an objective claim by comparing the formulas, would she have the facts and evidence to back it up? And it is possible that Naturium has conducted enough testing and research that they have the research findings and test results to kind of back up the superiority of the formulas and whatnot. And usually that's determined by the court, ranging from industry to industry. So they'll generally consult basically like an expert consensus on stuff like this. But before it even gets to that point, challengers have to request a whole investigation to see if there's even a basis for potential violations like this. And so as a result, they have to figure out, the damages, the monetary damages, whether it would be worth it to even undergo the whole cost and burden of legal action. So that means that usually stuff like this would result in some other form of resolution, so like something like a demand letter, or like a cease and desist or a takedown. Sometimes they'll go to the NAD, which is the National Advertising Division of the Better Business Bureau, and so they'll usually settle disputes like this as well. So all that to say, sorry to kind of bait you guys, but even though it may seem pretty apparent and clear that she violated FTC guidelines, pretty much at the moment there's no telling whether Susan Yara actually broke any laws. But I think the thing to get out of all of this, seeing as how our justice system is often a whole argument of gray area anyway, that the presence of such a gray area at least warrants some very valid discussions on questions of legality and ethics. So the last step of my analysis is basically getting into the whole psychology of influence, which is trying to understand basically the difference in reactions that people might have pertaining to the situation. So excuse my rudimentary little graph that I drew here, but it's basically just to show the spectrum of relationships and interactions that people may have. So on the left side of the spectrum are your peers or your friends, family, and acquaintances. These are people that you kind of interact with on a regular basis. You have a personal relationship with them because it's a reciprocal relationship or a more of a two-way street. On the right hand of the spectrum are your more traditional celebrities that you see on screen like in TV or movies. This is more of a parasocial relationship because while you may see them a lot within media and content and they might be a part of your daily life, it's not really the other way around. It's more of a one-way street. So as for influencers, they kind of lie somewhere in the middle, right? Depending on the individual or the influencer, they kind of lie somewhere in between these personal and parasocial relationship spectrum with varying degrees of separation and conflicts of interest. So, for example, if you're looking for a eyeliner recommendation, right, on the left end of the spectrum with your personal relationship, such as friends and family and acquaintances, you believe what they will recommend to you and you trust them because there's a lower degree of separation and conflict of interest. They're close to you, you have a developing relationship with them, you see them all the time, it's a reciprocal relationship, and so you don't really have any reason to believe that they would lie to you generally. Then on the opposite end of the spectrum, as for celebrity endorsements or them being spokespeople for the brand, you kind of would buy that product because of their fame or symbolism or what they stand for. There's a higher degree of separation because you don't have a personal relationship with the person. It's more of a one-way street, and so there's a higher conflict of interest. The celebrity doesn't really have as much of an incentive to make sure that you like the product personally. Then, as for influencer recommendations, people kind of believe what they have to say or the products that they recommend based on authenticity and expertise. They either value what the influencer has to say because of their knowledge and expertise on the subject, or if they come off as trustworthy or not. So, what went wrong here, right? Did Susan perhaps misjudge the potential perception of her actions? Maybe she even misjudged her own relationship with her fans and subscribers. So, from the situation, some people may feel like they wholeheartedly trust her in the first place since they see themselves as having a more personal relationship with her, and that her ending up to be the founder is just a cherry on top. But others may just see her as more of a parasocial relationship and just feel massively betrayed and disappointed by her misrepresentation instead. Similarly, some people may appreciate the discount she was giving out and see it as an exclusive offer to her more close and intimate group of subscribers, while others don't see it that way and can only focus on the increasing conflict of interest as she goes from influencer to a brand founder. Alright, let's finally move on to Susan's apology and some final thoughts and takeaways, where we try to consider both perspectives, or all perspectives. So as soon as the backlash kind of grew, she posted this Instagram saying, "Hi everyone, I have seen the comments come through today and I'm very sorry I upset you. I had the best of intentions and realized my mistakes. I can assure you no one knew about my involvement with Naturium when they posted about the brand. It was insinuated in the live today. Content creators knew more and that is completely false information. I will discuss more in the coming days but ask that you leave everyone out of this." So within the magazine feature that was done on Susan and Naturium, it was kind of updated to say, basically, Susan said the pandemic didn't make it feel like the right time to express her excitement. She still made several mistakes along the way that she decided to mention Naturium in her private Facebook group. Once members started asking for an opinion, that was a mistake, and I feel regretful about it. Soon afterwards, she also talked about it on YouTube. Again, it was a mistake. I validated my true love for my brand as a reason to post. My intent was never to deceive my followers, but simply to build a line whose following was based on a true experience with the product, not my name. In hindsight, I should have waited to promote anything from the line until we were ready to announce my involvement. I realize some of my viewers are disappointed in my strategy, and I believe their feelings are justified. This has been an incredibly valuable lesson for me and my team. I'm very sorry if anyone feel like I was manipulative, but I can assure you my intentions were good. I know that doesn't make the situation better, so I apologize wholeheartedly. I'm committed to growing Naturium with a passion and purpose. I genuinely believe that we created a beautiful brand that gives consumers access to incredible formulations at great price points, and I hope I can earn the trust of those I disappointed. Then she goes on to also post this video saying she's sorry, where she kind of talks a little bit further about how when she first mentioned Naturium, she didn't have an agreement in place. She genuinely thought that there was a chance that things would fall through, and she wasn't sure, what the future was like, stuff like that. She wasn't sure what to disclose exactly. But then she kind of does say that she admits that she should have just waited until that they were ready to announce their involvement. She then further goes on to talk about how she's been getting a lot of, I guess, threats. You can watch the whole video for yourself, and I'm sure you kind of have if you're watching this video, but basically the reception to the video was people saying that, it was disingenuous in a way or maybe deflective at times. For example, there was a lot of sentiment revolving around how the official statement from Naturium from Ben Bennett says that this is Susan's brand, I am an investor, and the center acts as advisors to her, and we are also partners in it. Then people were bringing up how she previously did mention about potentially developing a skincare brand, but that it was, going through a lot of difficulties because of the timing and events going on. So one person kind of recounted how Susan in March or early April commented about how she was creating a skincare line, but COVID had stopped it, and so she said that she messaged basically Susan about it, and her response was basically, at this point, there's really no skincare line at all. It came to a halt, and this was April 11th. She said, didn't she promote Naturium a few days later? A lot of people just took issue with the way she kind of responded and addressed things. People were saying, I haven't seen any comments or messages inciting violence, and I don't think it's questionable for a consumer to reach out to journalists to find out about company ownership. She's a journalist herself. If people were making actual threats, that's unacceptable, but threatening her revenue or profits and filing complaints with FTC aren't inciting violence. There's also, sentiment around saying, what's really bothering me is her mentioning she's receiving nasty comments is that while I don't think she lied, I can honestly say that most of the nasty comments I've read are directed towards her critics, not her. I personally have been called a hater, a hypocrite, overdramatic, an attention seeker, and a Karen. I have been told that people are dying, as if I didn't already know that, and that I should stop acting like a saint and get a life, when I was just trying to provide information to people who were confused. Susan, if you are truly sorry, please tell your fans to be more respectful. There's further sentiment of saying that there's diversity of opinion is not allowed within the Facebook group, and that they're only creating their own little echo chamber of blind hardcore Susan stans. That's not a community, that's a clique. You can read all of these comments yourself if you would like. I'm just trying to summarize everything quickly. This message kind of goes a lot more in depth. She basically says, first off, anonymous soft launch is fine, promoting without disclosing is not. Two, people were digging into things because they were suspicious and had a right to as consumers. You were not unfairly targeted with an agenda just because people don't like you anymore. Then it goes on to point out, moderators not knowing about affiliation is whatever, but don't pretend like they're completely innocent or act like people are crossing boundaries when a mod literally stalked someone on LinkedIn. They've been dismissive, hypocritical yes men at worst, and patronizing at best. If anything, things keep getting worse because of how you keep responding to it. Personally, I can get over the launch slip-up and wasn't opposed to supporting, but this continued self-victimization over a situation she created is a big no. Violence is never okay here, period, but I have legitimately yet to see a single disrespectful comment or lie, and the conversation only continues because she can't properly address it or keep doing stuff to make it worse. Then there's sentiments that also kind of clarify. I don't think Susan is an evil, manipulative, criminal mastermind, but I do think she is doing a lot to control the narrative, and that's been very manipulative and fits the more broad description of gaslighting. I believe it's important for us to make this kind of a big deal to prevent it from happening again. If it had gone well, it would just leave it open to being repeated, and it's not something that needs to be happening. I want to spend my money as ethically as possible. I don't have much of it. I want it to go to the right people. There's also sentiments that kind of say, like this, if you're accountability culture, not cancel culture, and saying that, she's tried her best to basically apologize, and the person doesn't think that she'll ever truly get it. And so you can read the whole comment and stuff like that. She was basically saying how she can't really be a fan anymore, but she also doesn't think that the brand should suffer because of it, because it was really good otherwise. The concept, price, tree planting initiative, sustainability, clean beauty standards, etc. I hope all of that can still be an example to follow in the industry. Then here's another comment basically saying, they did suggest that she disclosed the amount of money made and just donated, and since she is doing that, even though she's a little uncomfortable, she's fine with the way Susan made amends, and she basically says that she believes Susan, that she doesn't technically have an official role at the time, but then she's saying she's basically okay with the response and has earned her forgiveness with the situation. She's still not sold on being a customer just yet, and only time will tell if the brand doesn't continue to make mistakes. So someone responds to it, bringing up the issue of censorship, and she basically says that she agrees and that she won't be a follower anymore, and her forgiveness is specifically limited to the brand announcement. Okay, so all that said and done, let's kind of unpack what happened here, right? There's honestly just so much. And the more I understand certain perspectives, the less I understand and more questions I have sometimes. Because someone like Susan from past history, she is shown to know and do better. She is a very respectable and experienced YouTuber in the skincare and beauty community. And like she said, she has a marketing and legal team behind her. So I'm surprised that they weren't more careful with the execution of an anonymous soft launch, considering she's such an influencer. And I'm wondering if they just didn't do proper cost-benefit analysis and risk calculation, or if they just weren't really fully aware of what was happening. Because there has been a lot of speculation of saying, since she has a team around this, maybe they are doing it on purpose to capitalize on the publicity from any kind of drama, right? And so the thing is, from a marketer's perspective, that's a very risky gamble, especially for someone whose image is not based on scandal or drama at all. So the question is, why would you risk integrity for publicity, especially when someone like Susan would really understand that her influence is powerful because of how people value her expertise and authenticity. And so, regardless of all this, I do believe that Susan didn't really have malicious intentions, but even as she said, there's a matter of intent versus impact. And so I do think that she was just prone to errors in judgment and was in a difficult situation and position of launching her brand in these times and events. I can also see how her launch probably didn't go as expected or planned because she was essentially forced to come out with the truth. But I can't imagine what they could have done to negate what had already happened in the past. So I also think that the issue wouldn't necessarily have been so big if it was just the launch mistake or if she was just recommending the brand. But the whole thing was just exacerbated by, frankly, her misrepresentation, and then later on, her defensive stance and kind of, frankly, human instinct of feeling attacked. But it's really her response to everything that kind of led to her releasing contradictory information and kind of making the problem even worse. So as a result, she kind of turned the launch of Naturium into what she said she didn't want in the first place, which is to make it about the influencer, or rather a influencer controversy. So the main takeaway I kind of want people to get from this video, which by the way, if you made it through all of this, thank you so much and props to you. But I also want to emphasize accountability over cancel culture, at least from me. Not that I have any influence at all over this, but I really just wanted to provide the information so people can have an informed discussion and introspection on business ethics and influencer responsibility. Personally, it's been a long, eye-opening experience where I don't think I'm really a fan of hers anymore, just because she's not the type of person I thought she was, I guess. However, even though I won't be watching her content or buying her product anytime soon, I'm more than aware that she isn't the most egregious business owner or even YouTuber there is. I might even have some more problematic faves that I'm not really aware of right now. So I don't want her or her brand to be canceled from this. I do see how she's trying and made amends however she could. So if anything, I think this whole thing just makes any or all of us see her as human as ever. Anyways, there will probably be some information and links down below, but I'm happy to finally end the video on the note that Black Lives Matter, defund and divest the police, donate to Yemen, free kids in cages, reparations for indigenous people, save our environment, and lastly, please make sure you're registered to vote because we need to get our authoritarian president out of office and protect our democracy. Thank you so much for watching, and bye everyone!